Welcome to the Sonship Sports Channel, and welcome to the maiden voyage of Green and Gold till I'm dead and cold. Jordan Love is not bad. Jordan Love is not terrible. Jordan Love is actually good, possibly great. Who knows beyond that? Everyone goes through things in life that they don't think they'll get over. My father once told me, son, everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end. And in football, we see that all the time. It didn't end pretty for Brett Favre in Green Bay. It didn't end pretty for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. It didn't end pretty for Joe Montana in San Francisco. There's always something that happens during a divorce. I'm divorced myself. Never thought that I would get to the point where I would want to figure out somebody else's idiosyncrasies and have them figure out mine. It's just a lot of work, but guess what? Here I am again. Life went on. I met someone else. Amy's been a godsend to me. Never thought that I would have gotten over losing what I had. And sports fans are no different. Especially Green Bay Packers sports fans, because as a diehard one, I can tell you it is really tough when you've had a Hall of Famer for 15 years and then you decide to move off of him voluntarily. Yeah, Green Bay eventually initiated it in both instances. Told Brett, you can come back to training camp, but Aaron's our guy. Told Aaron, kind of enough of your shenanigans, we're going with Jordan, or we'd like to go with Jordan. And the divorce happened. And I hear a lot of Packers fans kicking and screaming and calling for Brian Gutekunst's head. This isn't the first time we've dealt with this. Ron Wolf, an iconic general manager for Green Bay, brought in Brett Favre. Ted Thompson came in, got real sick of Brett Favre's offseason shenanigans, and drafted him a quarterback. I have close personal friends of mine, when they decided to not let Brett do what he was doing every offseason and be a diva anymore and said, c'est la vie, they lost their minds. Thanks, Ted, for ruining the organization for a decade. Didn't happen, did it? No, Aaron was what they thought he was. Brian Gutekunst comes along, gets tired of Aaron's shenanigans over the last three years or so, drafts him a quarterback. And let's get one thing straight. Everybody is up in arms. Well, if they would have only told Aaron what they were doing. No, it's not that they didn't tell him. It's that they drafted a quarterback at all. Do you really think the conversation would have went better if Brian would have called up Aaron and said, hey, Aaron, instead of getting you a top-notch receiver this offseason, we're going to draft your replacement? How the hell do you think that would have worked? I mean, that could have ended up worse than it already did. Everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end. Look, folks, I'm a numbers guy. I'm a pragmatist. I'm perspective person. I'm looking at this from a very nuts and bolts, dollars and cents, common sense approach. I'm trying not to look at this as a fan. Yeah, as a fan, of course, there's some heartstrings getting tugged. I've got a closet full of number 12 jerseys. I guess I'm going to have to get some 10s. It just works like that. And for those of you who are like, well, we're screwed because Aaron is 10 times better than Jordan Love. Well, I would hope so, at least maybe currently, or at least when Jordan got drafted. But how different have their 3 years been? Oh, we knew Aaron was going to be great. No, you didn't. You had no idea Aaron was going to. He was from a community college, then got picked up by Cal for a couple of years, and then got drafted in the first round. And he's the one they didn't pick. Remember, he dropped all the way to the 24th pick. And his future coach, Mike McCarthy, was one of the main ones in the room saying, not sure about this guy. And then Mike ended up being his head coach in Green Bay, and they won a Super Bowl together. No one knew that Aaron was going to be Aaron. No one. They saw he had some talent, just like Jordan Love has some talent. But no one knew that Aaron was going to turn into Aaron. So let's do a little drill here. Let's look at the years spent on the bench behind a Hall of Famer, and let's look at what their numbers were. Shall we? Good. Start with Aaron. Aaron Rodgers, in his first 3 years, his completion percentage was 59.3%. Jordan Love's 60.2. Very similar. Aaron Rodgers had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Jordan Love, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Very similar. Aaron Rodgers' QB rating. Let's see here. Where is that pesky QB rating? I think it was 79.7. No, that's Jordan Love. I'm sorry. Jordan Love's is 79.7. Aaron Rodgers, 73.3. So 6 percentage points higher for Jordan Love. Jordan Love hasn't been a disaster. It's amazing how everybody just looks at that Kansas City game from almost 2 years ago now. You know who wasn't in Green Bay when that Kansas City game happened? Tom Clements, offensive coordinator. Quarterback whisperer for Jordan Love. Now you look at Jordan Love and you're like, hey, this kid's cleaned up his fundamentals. He's going through progressions. He's setting his feet. All of his lower body stuff looks the way it's supposed to look now. How's he played in the preseason? Oh, come on, Chris, it's just preseason. Yeah, but you haters, if he'd been playing like crap, you'd be the first ones to say, see, even in the preseason, you can't do anything. So let's look at Jordan Love's preseason. Currently, Jordan Love, going into this weekend's Seahawks game, is 12 of 18, 66.7% passer rating, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and has a quarterback rating somewhere around, I believe it's 124. Well, that was against the first string defense of the New England Patriots. Now, I know he didn't play against a bunch of first stringers against Cincinnati, but he did what he was supposed to. And against a team who largely is thought to have a top 10 defense in the NFL, he performed quite well. Bill Belichick defenses aren't known for playing nice with inexperienced quarterbacks, and Jordan Love did just fine. Everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end. Green Bay fans are going to be fine. Jordan Love is good. It's not that he's just not terrible or not bad. Jordan Love's actually good. could possibly be very good, maybe even great. You know who doesn't believe that or won't bring themselves to believe that? Well, it's the people who say there is no way possible that lightning strikes 3 times. No way possible lightning strikes 3 times. There's no way that Green Bay strikes gold with the quarterback position 3 years in a row and basically owns the NFC North for the better part of half a century. Because it's been 30 years already. 1992 is when Brett Favre took over, and they've basically run the show, I don't know, 4 out of every 5 years. They're the division winner between Brett and Aaron. Yeah, the adoptive parents of the Chicago Bears. Yeah, I think Brett has them on one weekend and Aaron gets them on the other weekend. Depending on what happens in the first week of the season, you might have 3 parents. I don't know. Those pesky Bears kids. But yeah, those are the people who can't see that happening. There's no way. Jordan has to suck. Otherwise, the football gods are cruel. There's no way that this team can dominate the NFC North for that long. Well, let me tell you, he better suck. Otherwise, it's going to happen. And here's why. They've got 2 guys on their team over the age of 30. And they're not very much over the age of 30. David Bakhtiari on offense, and he might not be there next year anyway because of that enormous contract, which, by the way, again, folks, relax. They'll be just fine. They have options. Josh Nijman, Zach Tom. You can even bump Elgin Jenkins. We are deep on the offensive line. And it's going to free up a ton of salary cap space. And then Devondre Campbell, middle linebacker. Okay. Well, if Devondre Campbell loses a step and doesn't return to his Pro Bowl form, guess what? Unless something catastrophic happens to our old quarterback in New York, we got 2 first-round draft picks next year. And a king's ransom in salary cap space now after moving off Aaron. The future is bright for Green Bay. We're good and young with lots of players on their rookie deals. Guys like Russ Ball, the salary cap guru, and Brian Gutekunst, and even Matt LaFleur, they know what they're looking for. This isn't just some shot in the dark. There's strategy involved in this. All right. Moving off the divorce topic, let's talk about who we think is going to end up on the 53-man roster. Because I think there's going to be some surprises. I think there's going to be some guys that don't make the team, could outright be cut, sent to the practice squad. I think there's 25 offense, 25 defense, and the 3 on special teams. So special teams are easy. As of right now, Anders Carlson, I know that there's whispers about bringing back Crosby or maybe going out and getting Robbie Gould. I think this kid's going to be fine. He's got an older brother who Rich Bisaccia knows very well too, Daniel Carlson, who got cut in Minnesota after having a bad game. And all he's done since then is gone on to become, I'd say, the 2nd best kicker in the NFL behind Justin Tucker. And he's kicking out in Las Vegas for the Raiders. He's making 50, 60-yard kicks in preseason like it's nothing. So Carlson has the leg. It's between the ears. And he'll have one practice or one game where he goes 5 for 5, and the next one he goes 1 for 5. Well, let's let Rich Bisaccia do his work, because he did his work on his older brother. I think he can do it here. Pat O'Donnell, he's got a bit of a fight on his hands. I think he's going to end up being the one that Green Bay goes with over Daniel Whelan. But I wouldn't be shocked if they decided to go with Whelan, because Whelan's got a good leg. Matt Orzech is going to be the long snapper. Not a big shock there. Let's touch on the offense, and this kind of segues into what I was saying about Jordan Love. If Jordan Love is just good, I mean, maybe he never gets to Aaron Rodgers level. But what happens if he gets to Phillip Rivers level? Now, obviously, they got different skill sets. Phillip Rivers couldn't move, and Jordan Love can scramble. But what if he's Phillip Rivers? What if he's Matt Ryan? What if he's Matt Stafford? What if he's that level of talent? Derek Carr. It's still easily the best roster in the NFC North. Well, Chris, what about last year? Because they didn't make the playoffs and they had largely a lot of these same guys. Yeah, last year, the first, I don't know, 2/3 of the season, Joe Barry didn't use his defense the way he was supposed to. Did you see what that defense did the last 5 games of the season? When someone whispered in Papa Joe's ear and said, hey, either you start playing all these guys the way they're supposed to be, or you're not going to be here next year. And no one's going to tell me that conversation didn't happen. Guaranteed you it did. Because all of a sudden, the last third of last year, Green Bay started playing a lot more man and a lot more aggressive. They have the highest paid cornerback in all of pro football. Why would you not blanket him on the best receiver? Did you see what he did to CeeDee Lamb? Did you see what he did to Justin Jefferson? You have Jair Alexander, possibly the best shutdown corner in football currently. Use him. And they did. They had a top 5 defense the last third of the season last year. The first 2/3, it was bottom 10. Still not crazy about the rush defense, but they did a lot to improve that in the offseason, and I've heard from training camp and in the games that I've watched, it does look better. We'll touch on the defense in a minute. But that was one of the issues with last year. The other issue, I'll say it was number 12. Aaron Rodgers, in his first year, living without Davante Adams out there, struggled. He didn't have an Aaron Rodgers type year. He just didn't. He made quite a bit of mistakes. And the thing that he did the most that we're not going to have to worry about with Jordan Love is he didn't like running the offense the way that Matt called it. Aaron Rodgers hasn't known a 30-yard back shoulder throw that he didn't like. Didn't use the middle of the field. I'm not telling you guys things you don't know. Excuse me for a second. Jordan Love for the last 3 years has spent most of those last 3 years memorizing the playbook. And already you've got guys on that offense, like Aaron Jones and some of these other guys, saying that Jordan knows the playbook backwards and forwards. He's got it memorized, probably better than Aaron ever did. Because Aaron would walk up to the line, see something he didn't like, and then switch out of the play. And, 2 seconds later, back shoulder throw to Davante Adams along the sideline. Can't tell you how many times I'm literally watching the game and there's 2 guys wide open across the middle for a 7 or 8 yard gain with a possible rack. And Aaron fires it into double coverage just because he's comfy with Davante Adams. Well, that is another reason why the offense and the team didn't play as well. That New York Giants game in London, we were winning that. We were pounding the rock. We were running the football with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon like we should. With the offensive line that we have and the running backs that we have, we absolutely should have the running game as a bigger part of our repertoire. Second half, Aaron went, nope, screw that. I am not being highlighted enough. Here's my arm. We went home from London with an L. Now, I'm not a hater on Aaron. I love Aaron. Aaron won us a Super Bowl. One of easily the greatest quarterbacks of all time. 4-time MVP. That's incredible. But it was time for a change. Now, let's talk about some of those changed pieces. The receiver and tight end room, again, much like Jordan, isn't bad. It's young, it's good, and it's ultra talented. Have you guys seen how Luke Musgrave looks in the preseason so far? Have you seen how Tucker Kraft looks? Jaden Reed, holy cow. That kid just jumps off the page at you. Romeo Doubs, again, young guy, second-year guy. He could be a number one on some teams. You've seen him go up into contested coverage and just take balls away from people. And if we're talking about taking balls away from people, Christian Watson. Not only does he run a 4.28 40, he's 6'4", 208 pounds. He bullies the defensive backs and then just jumps over them and takes candy from a baby. I think that they're going to keep 7 in the wide receiver room. The easy ones are Watson, Doubs, Jaden Reed, the rookie, Samori Toure. And then I think they're going to keep 3 more because there's 3 other guys that have really shown themselves well. Dontavian Wicks, their 5th rounder, Malik Heath, an unsigned free agent, and Grant Dubose, their 7th rounder. Dubose has been injured and has, since he's come back, that kid is impressed. He's another one of those receivers that Green Bay just finds in the late rounds. Out of Charlotte, small school, don't hear a lot about him, but he dominated. If you look at his statistics, he played really well. 6'2", over 200 pounds, another one of those. Green Bay's big. I remember John Kuhn, longtime favorite of Green Bay, fullback announcer now, made the statement, Green Bay is bigger, stronger, and faster than I've ever seen them. He said, I don't know what that's going to translate onto the field 100%, but they're bigger, stronger, and faster than we've ever seen them. Tight end room, I think they're going to keep 4. They might go out and pick one up because having Tyler Davis on IR now, that kind of hurts. Josiah DeGuara has been playing kind of that fullback hybrid role, but they might use him more at tight end now if they don't go out and decide to pick up a tight end after cut down days. Obviously, Musgrave and Kraft are the easy ones. Josiah DeGuara will be in there somehow. Henry Pearson is an interesting one at fullback, unsigned free agent out of Appalachian State. I've liked what I've seen out of him. I don't know if he's the 4th guy, but if they don't go out and get someone in free agency, I don't know how he's not. Okay. Offensive line. I think we keep 9. Right now, and this could change by opening day, but right now, from left to right, David Bakhtiari, Elgin Jenkins, Josh Myers, John Runyon Jr., Zach Tom. Now, we all know that Josh Myers has had his issues. In fact, in that New England game, Green Bay didn't start out the greatest, and largely it was because Josh Myers missed the snap count. And even if he was right, that was a bad shotgun snap, and Green Bay turned the ball over deep in their own territory. Can't have that. Can't have those kind of miscues. You're a 2nd-round draft pick out of Ohio State. That is supremely disappointing. Here's why I think they're kicking around moving Zach Tom possibly to center. They just cut Jason Hanson. Now I know Jake Hanson. Jake Hanson was their backup center behind Myers, and I know that he's injured, so they may have done this anyway, which is why I can't swear to it, but I don't know. There's just a feeling that by cutting him, they could be saying, well, we don't need to carry 3 centers, and we were going to move somebody over to center anyway. Josh Myers is now going to be our backup center, which I like I said, I don't like. He's a 2nd-round draft pick out of Ohio State. That if you go back and you look at the 2021 draft, there was another center in that draft that Green Bay passed on by the name of Creed Humphrey. Yes, out there playing in Kansas City for the Super Bowl champs, that Green Bay passed on because they thought Josh Myers was better. Well, sometimes you swing and you miss. Now, Josh Myers still has time to hopefully develop, but one guy who I don't think has any more time left, was a starter, lost his job, and has been playing worse since then, is Royce Newman I don't know what happened to this kid, but he was drafted in that same class. Former right guard for Green Bay. I don't know if he's going to make this team. I know Rasheed Wallace will. I know Josh Nijman will, and I know Sean Ryan will. All of them could honestly start. I think this last spot comes down between Royce Newman and Caleb Jones. I don't think they're going to keep both. That would be 10 offensive linemen, and if you do that, if you keep 10 offensive linemen, there's a spot on your roster that's extremely thin. So I don't think you do that. I think the last spot comes down to Caleb Jones and Royce Newman. And right now, I'm kind of leaning towards Caleb Jones because you're not 100% sure about David Bakhtiari's health and things like that. Everybody's kicking around, well, what happens if someone trades for him? I know Brian Gutekunst came out and said, we're not trading David Bakhtiari. But I have a real tough time believing that just because I have eyes and I've watched the NFL for so long. They say these things all the time. Oh, OBJ, he's not getting traded. And all of a sudden, he's with a new team a week later. Like what's going on with Stephon Diggs right now. There's a lot of smoke there, but there's probably a little bit of fire. I'm hearing Stephon Diggs for Jonathan Taylor, and then someone else comes out and says, no, that story's been debunked. And then a week later, Stephon Diggs gets traded. It's like, all right, well, there was something to it. All right. Quarterback, that's easy. Jordan Love, Sean Clifford. I've loved what I've seen out of Sean Clifford in the preseason. All of you should too. I know he had the one game where he threw 2 interceptions, but did you also see in that same game the moxie that kid has? 4-year guy out of Penn State playing against top-level competition. He drove them down the field and stuck it in the end zone. So I'm talking in the preseason game after he threw those 2 interceptions. I just like him. A lot of people are like, why would you take Sean Clifford in the 5th round? Weren't there other guys better? And I thought that. But again, that's why I'm not the general manager for the Green Bay Packers, because they obviously saw something in him playing out there at Penn State against this top-level competition where they're just like, hey, this kid's cool as a cucumber. He may not be the most talented guy in the field, but he can move, he can scramble, and he's smart. He goes through his progressions, things like that. It's a very difficult position to play. And look, last year, San Francisco found the very last person picked. And because of that, they're going to be moving off and trading the number 3 overall pick in the draft from a couple of years earlier. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Everybody's like, why are they taking this kid out of Iowa State? Well, now we see why they took him. I think they will keep Alex Mago on the practice squad. He's obviously won the MVP in the XFL, I believe. I'm not the XFL, in the USFL. The new rule this year in the NFL says that you get to keep a third quarterback that doesn't count against your 53-man roster, which I think the catalyst for that decision was the playoff game last year between the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. They just didn't have anybody left that could throw the football for San Francisco. And I'm one of those people who truly believe that if Brock Purdy was able to play healthy that entire game, San Francisco goes on to the Super Bowl. And I think they would have still lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, but I think that that game would have been different between them and the Eagles. So, last position group, offense, running back. Jones and Dillon are the easy ones. They're only keeping 3. And you have Patrick Taylor, Tyler Goodson, and Emmanuel Wilson. I don't see how you keep Emmanuel Wilson off this team. He's just impressed way too much. I like Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson. Patrick Taylor is a great special teams guy. Tyler Goodson is kind of like that Swiss Army knife. You can use him in a whole lot of places. When you watch Emmanuel Wilson run the ball, he just runs special. He does. He just runs special. And I think that he's going to see snaps this year. And I think he's the 3rd running back that we keep. All right, on to the defense. Defensive line, I think we keep 6. I don't think there's going to be any surprises there. Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt at the ends, TJ Slayton at the nose, Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks at the ends, Jonathan Ford, backup nose. I love Carl Brooks. 6th-round draft pick out of Bowling Green. We've seen him have some extremely impressive moments throughout training camp and the games. He should have been a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick, but because he went to Bowling Green, he dropped. And Green Bay got him. And I'm absolutely tickled pink that Green Bay, or tickled green, I should say, that Green Bay got him. I think that he could be, possibly another Mike Daniels for us. Daniels was a 4th rounder, turned into, our best defensive lineman for a lot of years. Carl Brooks is going to be difficult. I mean, forget about making the team. It's going to be difficult to keep him out of the starting lineup. Clark, Wyatt, Slayton, they better make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to with that rush defense, because Carl Brooks is going to be breathing down their necks. An interesting statistic, Carl Brooks obviously went to a lesser-known school, Bowling Green in the MAC. Remember a guy by the name of Khalil Mack? Also came out of a small school, Buffalo. Had a lot more fanfare around him because he was a pure pass rusher. Carl Brooks was, he was a defensive end, but he was a bigger guy, could play D-tackle, so didn't get as much fanfare. They played the identical amount of games in college, and Khalil Mack has 1 more sack than Carl Brooks does. And he's a pure pass rusher. Carl Brooks is 296 pounds. He's built more like a D-tackle, and he had just 1 less sack than Khalil Mack did. So do with that as you will. Just a nice little stat in there, but watching him, he's passing the eye test with me. All right, linebackers. Off the ball linebackers, we should say. We keep 4. Campbell and Walker. And then behind them, I'm going to say McDuffie and Wilson. I like Tariq Carpenter and Jimmy Phillips. I just don't know if they've done enough to stay on the active roster. I think maybe both of them get signed to the practice squad. Tariq Carpenter, I don't think Green Bay's done him any favors. Tariq Carpenter was a 4-year starter at Georgia Tech, was their leading tackler the whole time. He's built in that way that he could play safety, he could play linebacker, and Green Bay just doesn't know what to do with him. So I don't see that he makes the opening day 53, but I think they keep him on the practice squad. Eric Wilson is really good on special teams. I think Isaiah McDuffie has worked his way as the number 2, or I'm sorry, the number 3 inside linebacker. He'd be the first one off the bench if Campbell or Walker gets hurt or need a breather. Right now, McDuffie's playing alongside of Quay Walker because Campbell's nursing that leg injury that isn't supposed to keep him out of time or off the field for any particular amount of time. But I think McDuffie definitely is the first guy off the bench. Wilson would be the next, but they're largely keeping him because Eric Wilson is excellent on special teams. All right, edge rusher. This is one of our deepest rooms. I think we keep 6. I think Green Bay keeps 6. I really do. Having a plethora of pass rushers is always a bonus. Obviously, right off the bat, Rashawn Gary is healthy. We thought that he was going to be put on the PUP and probably be on there until first 4 weeks of the season. Nope. Looks like he's going to play week 1. He's played really well since he's gotten off the PUP. He looks great. So opening day, probably Gary and Smith. Then right behind them, another first-round draft pick, Lucas Van Ness, along with Kingsley Enagbare, who's had an amazing camp. Enagbare played extremely well going down the stretch last year after Gary got hurt. Enagbare had a really nice final third of the season. And then the last two, Justin Hollins, who has proved very capable in the pass rush, and he's good at stopping the run as well. And then Brenton Cox. Brenton Cox could be the wild card here. Brenton Cox played for both Florida and Georgia. He's got better statistics than Lucas Van Ness does for his college career. He averaged over 30% in a QB pressure statistic for his entire 4-year career. Lucas Van Ness broke 30 his final year, got to 33% in his final year. And Lucas Van Ness is a consensus first-round draft pick. But the year before at Iowa, he was only 16%. Brenton Cox averaged 30. He was a freshman at Georgia and was out pass rushing a lot of these guys that won back-to-back national championships that are now playing. Well, I think they all play for the Eagles, but some of them play for the Packers too, because we got Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker. But yeah, so Brenton Cox, if he can keep his nose clean, and that's a big if. I mean, that's obviously been his problem. He got kicked out of both Georgia and Florida, and it takes something to get kicked off an SEC school. That we're not talking Vanderbilt or Notre Dame here. If you get kicked out of an SEC school, you probably did something wrong. So I think one of them was a marijuana charge, and another one, I think he got into an altercation with the big tackle. I don't know who it was. Was it Jones? I don't know. But anyway, he got into a fight and another one and got kicked out of both universities, or off the team in both universities. But his skills on the football team or on the football field, they're unquestioned. Brenton Cox, if he had kept his nose clean, much like Carl Brooks, who came from Bowling Green, could have or should have been at least a second-round draft pick. Last but not least, my secondary. I'm going with 9 in the secondary. Stokes will obviously be in there at some point to add to that secondary that's already the fastest in football. Stokes is on the PUP right now. I hope he's back for week 1, but if he's not, they're loaded again. Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas playing the outside. You got Keyshawn Nixon in there playing the slot. Rudy Ford and Darnell Savage, I believe, are both going to make the team. I think Jonathan Owens makes the team as well. Anthony Johnson, Tavarius Moore. Moore's really good on special teams. I like Anthony Johnson. I don't know if he's shown enough to make the 53. If he doesn't, I think he's definitely a practice squad guy. And then obviously Eric Stokes when he's healthy. So Alexander, Savage, Ford, Douglas, Nixon, Stokes, Owens. How could I forget Carrington Valentine, who's had the amazing training camp? And then either Moore or Johnson as that 9th guy. I don't think they're going to keep 10. So that's what the 53-man roster, I think, is going to look like. Now, anything could happen. I could be 100% wrong here. And don't forget, I believe Green Bay has like the 6th easiest schedule this year. So everybody who's sitting here saying, oh, Green Bay is going to go 4-13. Have you seen the schedule? I mean, if you take a look at Green Bay's schedule, and a lot of their really difficult out of division games are at Lambeau. So we'll have to see what it turns out like. But look, folks, if you're worried about Jordan Love, don't be. I mean, it wasn't just the Eagles game. It's the fact that Tom Clements is back. He's cleaned up his fundamentals. The guys have been saying, hey, look, the last 2 offseason, this kid's made huge jumps. And now they just call him 10, which is a term of endearment. When you start getting called by your number, yeah, they believe in him. Now, obviously, the season hasn't started yet, and I could be completely dead wrong. But there's a lot of stuff that Green Bay's holding back off of that offense right now because it is preseason. So we'll have to see what it all looks like. But this is one of the most talented rosters in football. I'm not crazy for saying that. Look at all the first rounders on the defense. As long as they play the way that they did the final third of last year. And remember, they didn't have Rashawn Gary, Eric Stokes, or their new first-round draft pick, Lucas Van Ness, during that stretch run last year. All three of those guys are going to be here this year, and if they start off playing like that, they're going to be just fine. Offensively, yeah, it all comes down to Jordan Love. It really does. They're going to have a good offensive line, a great running game, and really talented and young skill position players. If Jordan Love can thread the needle like he's been doing in preseason, it's the best team in the division. Folks, I want to thank you for joining us on the Sonship Sports Channel on this maiden voyage of green and gold till I'm dead and cold. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this. I'd appreciate it. It really helps out with the channel. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching, and we will see you next time.